We're sitting here now at the dressing rooms in Finn Harps, Finn Park and Ballybofey. Patsy McGowan is here beside me. My manager most of the time was at Finn Harps. I suppose it's fair to say that I look at it and I think about this year, and it's exactly 50 years ago this year that I signed for Finn Harps. As you know, I probably was playing for St Pat's for 3 years. I got my chance in the League of Ireland simply by winning the FAI Junior Cup with Sully Rovers in Dundalk, and St Pat's both wanted to sign me. I opted for Pat's simply because they told me, and that was the only carrot I wanted, if you sign for us, you're in the team on Sunday. And I was in the team on Sunday, and I spent 3 years up there. It's a good decision. Why did I not sign for Dundalk? Very simple. Alan Fox was the manager, and basically he was a centre half, so there was no point in trying to displace the centre half who was the manager there. So that was, I played in all the pre-season friendlies for Harps in '69, and eventually I stayed one extra year with St Pat's, and I signed for Patsy in '70. Myself and Patsy went back along, but of course, because Patsy was the goalkeeper in the Rathmullen team, my father was running that team, so I would have known Patsy a long time ago. He will claim, and he'll talk himself about it later, he will claim that he was the man that give me my foot in the ladder, so to speak, in relation to serious soccer, because we were at a competition in Sligo, and Sligo Rovers were out of the league at the time, so they ran a cup, or a summer cup, yeah, and basically I was only a young lad, and Patsy was the goalkeeper for Rathmullen. My father was the manager down in Sligo. The centre half was missing for some reason, I don't know, by accident or design, but there was no centre half, so my father was wondering what he would do, and Patsy said something like, throw on the young fella, and Daddy said no, couldn't throw him, and he's more or less out of his depth in here. So Patsy persevered anyway, and I played, and that was the first real serious match I had, I suppose. I must have did all right, because things went all right afterwards. Basically I was marking Reggie O'Connell, who was over with West Ham, along with Patsy Sheridan from Rathmullen on trial during that particular year. So basically he was no soft touch, that Reggie O'Connell. He was one of the best centre forwards in the North West at the time. So I did all right, but I'll leave it to Patsy. I'll finish the story and he'll tell you what my father said about it. But I had 13 great years here at Finn Park, loved every one of them, good days and bad days, more good ones than bad ones. But having said that, it was great, and I have a picture here in front of me, and we'll be talking about it probably later, and that is a panel of players that was here when I was here, and every one of them was a gentleman, great fellas, great characters, and they're still great friends. You talk about that.
It's critical to say that as a player, call every one of them your friends, because if you were the manager, you had to fall out for every one of them and become your enemy. Referring back to that thing about Rathmullen and playing for Rathmullen, people talk about legends in football. To me, looking back, John Sheridan was a legend who was ahead of his time in football, his knowledge of the game and everything else. And you referred there to the match in Sligo where you come to play because the centre half was injured. And I said to him, don't worry, put on the young fella, he'll be alright. That was okay. We convinced him, and he played Jim. And after the match was over, I said to John, I told you, John, it'd be okay. I know, he says, I knew it'd be okay. But he says, I didn't want to take responsibility for it if anything went wrong, so I wanted to blame you boys. And I learned something there. You've got ahead of thinking with everybody to survive in football, you know. But whenever Jim came here, it probably annoyed the hell out of me, the fact that he was playing for St Pat's and we lost a year with him. But from the day he came until the day he finished up, the man established himself not only as a top player, a top leader, but a legend, not only in Donegal football but in League of Ireland football. And I can honestly say, and I hope he doesn't have bad memories, we never had a cross word. But if you wanted to win an argument with Jim about something, you had to do it in a very diplomatic way. And he'd come round and end up, I'll give you an example. After a match here, we came into the dressing rooms and we conceded a bad goal. It was a mistake between, we'll put it this way, the two centre defenders. And I went for them and attacked them. And Jim says, I wouldn't agree with that there. And they all get into the shower, right? And I kept shouting in and Jim kept shouting out of the shower. And then up all the rest of the players come out of the shower. And Jim was still in the shower 15 minutes later. And the water was getting cool. And there was silence for a few minutes. And the next thing he shouted out of the shower, you know something, he says, well, thinking about what you're saying, you could have a point. And I said, Jim, that cold water can you the world of good.
Yeah, I remember the day well. As we were in that dressing room there now, it's now the referee's room, and that was the dressing room where we used to change, and the shower is still there. And basically that's exactly what happened. But there were great days, and as I said already, and I'll say it again, I won't be able to say it often enough, I owe a lot to you. You're a great man every way, and Fran as well. There was a great bunch of people here at the time, Charlie McHugh and Tom Furlong. Tom Furlong was a great character too. And we had we were winning a lot of matches, so we were basically on top of our game most matches. And I suppose we were a bit unfortunate, didn't win the league a few times. But having said that, I often say that, you know, we were unlucky, but then again other teams were unlucky as well. But there was a few times we were good enough to win the league, and it's not a regret I have, because I've no regrets of being up here. But definitely it's something that probably would have been icing in the cake, would have been a league championship. To have 3 runners up is difficult to take. But we'll have the old cup final, a cup winners' cup, and that's a good one. And just one thing about the cup, though, I was always in doubt for that cup. Not too many know that. Patsy probably heard the story anyway, but I was stationed in a little village called Drummond in Leitrim, and the morning before the match was on a Sunday, but I was going to Dublin on Saturday evening. I always travelled on my own, and lo and behold, I was working the Friday, and the post office was robbed. The local post office, I was the only guard there, and for a while I was wondering would I ever get to the cup final, and basically I got there anyway, and the rest's history. We did well.
People make comparisons about football 45, 50 years ago and football now. And the way players are looked after nowadays, spoiled, well treated, overpaid, and all that sort of thing. How Jim Sheridan managed to keep the level that he was at and play for as long as he did was remarkable. And the reason I'm saying that is he hardly ever trained along with the team. He was based up in Leitrim, trained on his own, turned up for the matches, and that took some commitment to do that there. You know, there must have been nights he didn't feel they got out and all the rest of it. And I remember one day he turned up at Talca Park, and we're sitting getting ready, and I looked down, I seen Jim trying to put on the sock, and the leg was red, white and blue. And I says, Christ, Jim, you couldn't play with a leg like that. Oh, I says, what do I tell you? I didn't drive all the way up here not to play. I said, that's all right, you do that. That was all right. The match started, and Jim with a shin pad on to cover it up. After half an hour, and Jim was marking the top goal scorer in the league, O'Connor. You remember that? And they went up for a ball. And I think maybe Jim's arrival was a wee bit late. but they carried O'Connor off on a stretcher. Jim had broke his collarbone with his head going up to head the ball. And that gives you some idea of the physicality of the man. And he never done anything wrong in a player in his life. He never deliberately hurt a player. But he gave everything 110%. And that was a great influence to every other player in the team, because Jim was the example that they all tried to follow. Even fellas who wouldn't have the same physicality and all the rest of it. And it always amazed me that you were able to get the momentum up to keep going like that there. Because left on your own the way you were, it must have been a lonesome trail.
Well, it might have been, but having said that, it was never an issue for me, because I know what you're saying. It was a lot easier for me to train with the boys if we came up here, and but I was training on my own a lot of the time, training with Longford Town, training with Sligo Rovers, so I rarely saw the boys until match day. But there's one thing I know myself, I had a serious will to win, and basically I wanted to win every match I went out. Whether it was Deeney's Corner, no matter where it was, and basically that gave me a great incentive. And another thing about it is, I was playing for Finn Harps. They were my team. I wanted them to win. I was playing for the jersey, and I know my heart was big enough to play that way. I was playing for this man here, and basically we were all on the one hymn sheet, and everybody in this photo was on the one hymn sheet, and basically they were a great bunch of fellas. And I come back to it again. It was remarkable. They were a remarkable bunch, and there's a few fellas not in this that were very, very good friends as well. But the thing is that it was a privilege to play for Finn Harps for all those times. It was a privilege to play under this man. It was a privilege to be considered good enough to be the captain of Finn Harps. Now, as I said before, and I'm very honest about this, James Nicholl was the captain of Finn Harps from the first year I was here, and he broke his leg. And James Nicholl basically had finished his career, more or less, and then Patsy made me captain. I don't know why he made me captain, but he did anyway, and I stuck it a long time. But that was it. But just one other story that's worth thinking about. I left Finn Harps in 1983. And basically I was in my 39th year at that stage, and definitely at that stage I knew myself I was near my sell-by date, and basically my back was going, hurt my back, and I spent 6 months out of work afterwards. But I often thought about it afterwards, and it was a great way to leave the club, because it's like I went out and I never came back, but I went out on a high at a point. Now Patsy did want me to come back again when I recovered, but at that stage John McElwain and Paddy were the two centre backs, and I said to myself, basically, where would I be going? Because I had got a great innings, and Patsy gave me the opportunity to play and have that career, and it was just absolutely wonderful. I suppose I did play one match afterwards for Sligo Rovers away back 2 or 3 years later. Tony Fagan laughed at me because he reckoned I was a different man than he saw in Ballinafaith 3 years earlier, and he was right. We played up against Chris Rutherford broke his leg, and Jerry Mitchell rang me. I was playing junior football, and he rang me on a Monday to see would I play a match on the following Sunday against Longford, and I was avoiding it like a pain in the head. And Jerry said, look, you'll have to help us out because we'll have nobody. So I played 2-2 draw, doing all right. Second half up to speed, but definitely off the pace. She was only playing a bit of junior football at that stage. But in any event, I probably would have got on the next week as well, but I was playing Gaelic football for the Guards on Monday night, tore a calf muscle, end of story, 6 months hurtling around again. So that was how my career ended in Finn Harps, with an injury really. And I often thought about it afterwards. It was a great way to leave really, and the injury wasn't great, but it meant that Patsy hadn't to tell me like to clear. I don't think I would have said that anyway, but I got some wee job from me about the place. Even if we're only sweeping up.
The thing I was going to say there, Jim, the thing that always struck me, was there any other members of the Garda ever played League of Ireland football?
Well, since there was a fella actually played, and he played amateur international for Ireland away back, or full international for Ireland away back in the 20s, and he was a member of the Guards. I forget his name, but he was away back on all those years ago. And then Mick Moody signed for St Patrick's Athletic after I had left him, and he played. But apart from that, there were very, very few. I would have been the first in modern times anyway to play.
You know, I always felt that
My mistake.
one of the reasons why, and maybe not deliberately, the fact that you were a member of the Gardaí, a lot of the players seen you as a person with a lot of authority, and they would never argue with you, they'd never fall out with you. You know, you probably got better treatment than anybody else.
But that's a unique way of putting it, but maybe you're right. But I would like to think that some of those Derry fellas, if they had anything to say to me, would have said it.
They weren't in the right circumstances.
But they were really great. But those big days, and when you think about the matches against Waterford and Cork Hibs and Shamrock Rovers, we had great times. They were playing those. They were top teams.
Looking back now, you know. Some of the characters that were in the League of Ireland football back then, good players, but fantastic characters as well. Like, you know, but we're talking there about the cup final team, right? And we got to that cup final, and nothing was a problem. We had problems, injuries, but we never let it get to us, because we could overcome it, or there was somebody else there to fill in. But as we approached that cup final, I should have been shaking in my boots with the fear of losing it. But I never seen us losing that final. I was so confident when we got there, you know. And whenever the final whistle blew and the crowd invaded the pitch, and I walked out onto the pitch as if we had won 10 different cups at different times, because it had no effect on me, because I expected it anyway. You know.
That's right.
Simple as that there. But qualifying for Europe was something else, because when we went into the league all them years ago, and a certain person in Ballybofey said to me, "You're going to Dublin for the meeting to get into the league. You're going to embarrass the whole county." I didn't know that. We got into Europe, went out to all the different countries and different teams, and I have to say, it was a totally different experience, because you were playing against clubs and players. There was people you read about in the papers, and an amazing thing if you think about it. And it's rare that this interview's going on this weekend. Finn Harps were in Europe before Ireland was in Europe. You know.
I didn't have that statistic now. Fair play. Yeah.
We were in Europe before.
That's right.
Ireland went into Europe.
The funny thing Patsy mentioned there about the cup final, I never thought we'd lose the cup final either. And I had played with Pats and I knew some of the fellas who were there, but never thought we'd lose it. But the one thing is that basically I thought our name was in the cup when we played Bohemians in the semi-final in Daly. Was the quarter-final? Was it in Dalymount Park? Mm-hmm. We beat Athlone in the semi-final, I think. And Bohemians are a very, very good team, and Jerry Murray kept us in the game and had a great save. And we came back here, and I reckon that was the best performance that ever I had with a Harps team. A team performance was that day that we beat Bohemians 2-0 out here, and Charlie Ferry scored the 2 goals, corner kick and free kick, I think it was. And basically, it's not the fact that those people would say those goals, the corner scoring directly from a corner, etc., were lucky. They weren't lucky. We overran Bohemians that day. They had a very, very strong team, and to be honest about it, I think it was the best performance of a Finn Harps team that ever I was playing on. And I don't know if Patsy might agree or not. He probably remembers the match well. Yeah. And it was a very, very good one. And the cup final itself, never thought we'd lose it. I'm on record as saying that basically we gave away a very bad goal, and we did. We were leading 1-0 after a few minutes, well 5 or 10 minutes, and then they got a free kick, and the ball was headed back across the goals, and we were caught, and basically just caught, simple as that. But then again, we had not a rocky period, but then they came at us a bit, but we held out well, and again the goals were scored, and Big Brenton of course was there as well, and Charlie Ferry, and the goals came and we won the match 3-1, I think, was it? A lot of years ago, but I think it was 3-1. And you know, we well deserved to win it. Nobody ever suggested that. I suppose the fact that we would have been sort of favourites for it, I think. But having said that, St. Pat's had a strong team at the time too, so it was great to win that. And great memories coming back to Donegal with a cup and bringing back to Ballybofey and Letterkenny and the cup in Rathmullen and all the rest of it. It was absolutely wonderful. And the sad thing is that it's sorry that Harps didn't win a cup since. They should have won the cup one year, definitely. I was at a match in Dublin when Harps threw it away. But that's football. You just take the chance when you can. Europe, Patsy mentioned Europe there, and sure, Europe was we played in Aberdeen, we played in Derby, and we played in Everton and Liverpool, and we also were out in this place in Turkey where we in Cup Winners' Cup we played the crowd called Bursaspor, where the fellow at the back of the bus was christened Handbrake. We're in this old half-decker bus. And we're from the airport, and we're going from Istanbul in the airport, and we were going 2 or 3 hours up the mountains to this place. Seemed 2 or 3 hours anyway, and it seemed to be up mountains, but this was a rattletrap of a coach, not like the modern ones. And we were wondering what the fellow was sitting at the back and said he's hardly a conductor because we're all in this private coach. And the next thing, the coach stopped, and he jumps out and he pulls about 3 foot of a 6x6 block of timber from under the somewhere, and he put it onto the back wheel. So basically that's why he was christened the Handbrake. And that was do you remember that? You do?
Yeah. Hey, you know, you look back at things like that here and you wonder why we're still here.
Well, that's true.
If you think back, you sit there that we went to Turkey. Do you remember what happened going into Turkey? We're coming onto land at the airport, and I'm sitting looking out the window, and I can see the water nearly up at the plane. You come in off the sea onto the runway, right? And I says, Christ, we must be nearly down the ground. All of a sudden the plane lifted up in the air again and came into land. What happened was there was a blackout in the whole city, and the lights on the runway, everything went off, and the pilot got to report back up again in time. Other than that, we were all gone. But the amazing thing about it was 6 months later the same thing happened with another plane, and 180 people were killed in the same place.
Jeez, I never remember that.
Oh,
but I wasn't looking out the window to say. But there must have been a great chat about that, sure. But I remember coming into it, surely, and I remember something funny happening because I thought the plane was funny. Something was happening to it, but I didn't know what it was. But you have related very well there, I'll tell you.
Do you remember the trip to America?
I do. Every bit of it. Every bit of it.
We're leaving to come home after playing 9 matches in America and Canada, right? And about half an hour out in New York, the pilot came on. He says, we're going to have to make a bit of a detour. We're heading for Gander in Newfoundland. He says, there's no problem. I'll come back to you. He come back. He says, now, we got a phone call, message, that there's a bomb on board. We'll be coming into land in 15 minutes. We're at 44,000 feet now. We'll be coming down very quick, and it's going to be a rough run down. And whenever we hit the runway, we won't be anywhere near the terminal. He says, just head for the exit and jump. There's no steps, just a slide. And get as far away from the plane as you can. And that made it sound worse. You know what I mean? And I never forget it. With all the players, and when they were fit, the first man off the plane was Tom Furlong from Letterkenny, solicitor.
The biggest man of the lot.
The heaviest man in the place.
Yeah.
But we went into the terminal for 5 hours, and a lot of the boys got nice and drunk. And we're told, right, they've searched the plane, can't find a bomb. We're now going to head out again, back on the plane. And I said to myself, what happens if they didn't find this bomb? And I was the only person that had no drink in him. And
What about me?
I know I will. But I said to myself, every minute I was waiting to see the plane go. But we managed to land it at Sheridan Airport.
A few hours later, that's right.
But some of them incidents like that there were unbelievable.
Well, that's a frightening one now. That was a frightening one, because we could have been. Let's say we were almost halfway. We'd gone out of New York a good bit, and we're almost and nearly to go home. But it was ironic too that I looked at Gander that time when we were leaving it, and I said, "I'll never see this place again." And that was 1972 was it? 1972. It was 72 or 73, and 1994.
74 it was.
And no, 74. In 1994, I was with a crowd going out from Sligo to the World Cup in America, and there was two. John, my son, was with me, and there was two planes sitting in the tarmac. We're all booked with Aer Lingus, and there was one of them a fine big new jumbo jet. Another looked like a rattle trap of a plane, to be honest about it. But it was, of course, at that time the FA were hiring any plane from all over the world, leasing them to bring the crowds out. And lo and behold, I said to John, we sure as God will be in that small yoke. And EA 762 will say it was called an EA 763. And we were on EA 763, and we were on this yoke. And he took off out of the airport like a bat out of hell, straight up, almost like a fighter plane. And it was a grey yoke. It was like, and you wouldn't think it was a big plane at all, but yet and all there was over 300 people on it. It looked small beside the jumbo. But anyway, we're up, and he said in his best American accents, which I wouldn't attempt to imitate, but he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board this flight to New York." He said, basically he said, due to the number of passengers in this plane and the amount of baggage on it, he says, we have to go down and Gander, Newfoundland, he said, to refuel. So I had a second trip to Gander, Newfoundland. Never thought I'd see it again, but I did. And basically I took a photograph the second time with the two fellas that were from Colleray, and John and myself. I got a photograph taken under the big sign which said Gander.
One of our exploits in football against very senior opposition was against Aberdeen out here in a pre-season friendly, and we beat them 4-2. And on that occasion I did score a goal, believe it or not. I'm looking at the goals here now, and I wasn't too far out, probably 10 yards, and I just side-footed into the corner. And it's there, black and white, it's history now, and I suppose you can't change the history book, so it was nice to say that while I missed a few in my time, I scored an odd one.
You scored the important ones.
There was goals there at the bottom. I remember one day against Shelburne, Paddy Roach, who later went to Manchester United, with some goals up here for Shelburne, and the ball, they got a corner down from that corner there in the distance, and I headed it clear, and as I did, it took off running up the middle of the field, and it went out to the right back, and he got up to the right side of the field man, and I went up a bit further, and I kept running, and I got right up to the goals, and the cross came in, and I was the only Hearts player in the box, and I hit the post from 8 yards. The good thing about that was we won the match. They were given out to me, they didn't score the goal. But just I tell you, I felt a bit of a fool after running all that distance and didn't score. You know, it was that's true. Hit the bloody post.
Well, you were doing another fair share.
We're in the dressing room now at Finn Park, the home dressing room, and behind us here is a board with tactics, and basically that's it, and that's the way it should be. I suppose the game has changed since the last 50 years. Very professional approach, I suppose that's the way it should be as well. Basically, in my day, the story was very simple. The tactician was here to my right, Patsy. He was the manager. He told us how to play. We were cute enough ourselves to know how to play, and I'm sure Patsy would agree with me when I would say that basically we were all tacticians in our own right, and we didn't need to be told too often what to do or who to mark, and we got on all right. So basically that's the way it was in those days. You just were told what to do, who to mark, you remembered it, and you got on with the job. And if we'll say somebody was falling down, you covered for them, they covered for you the next day. That's the way it was. Played as a team for one another with a big heart.
When you done what you wanted to do, you won the match. If you didn't do it, you lost the match.
Very good. Back in the 70s, this park had 3,000 any Sunday, 3,000 to 4,000, most matches, and playing against the likes of Cork, Hibs or Waterford Shamrock Rovers, that was easily doubled, so 7,000 here matches during the summer, there's no doubt about that, way back in the 70s. And definitely very enjoyable playing out here in front of those numbers, and we had great days. Hadn't we, great?
There are times, the big crowds, there wasn't room to fall down. You were shoulder to shoulder.
That's true. That is true. That is true. Times have changed. Society